Welcome, dear companion, to another quiet passage we walk together. Tonight, you are gently guided into a deep stillness, a soft stream of ancient knowing that carries you toward calmness and restorative rest. This moment is offered so you may release completely, find ease within the silence, and drift naturally into a deeply nourishing sleep. I will share with you a carefully woven collection of Zen reflections and timeless parables drawn from traditions that have long understood the nature of inner freedom and emotional lightness. Each story holds a quiet power capable of transforming how you relate to distraction, mental noise, emotional weight, and the constant pull of the outer world. These are not simply stories. They are living teachings, preserved by those who understood that true peace does not arise from changing life's conditions, but from softening how we see them. As ancient wisdom reminds us, true calm is the greatest victory of the inner self. As we move through this journey together, you will begin to sense how these enduring truths gently reshape your inner. As each story unfolds, something subtle yet profound begins to occur within you. The tight hold of daily worries slowly loosens. The endless stream of thoughts quietly fades. Without effort, you settle into a space of deep understanding and gentle rest. So allow yourself to sink comfortably now. Let your body yield to whatever supports you. Take one slow, mindful breath and as you release it, know that ancient insights are meeting you exactly at the moment you are ready to receive them. Let us enter a story about the wisdom hidden within what is left unsaid. This is the insight of the silent monk. In a tranquil mountain monastery where morning mist embraced old pine trees, Master Sengai lived with a devoted monk who had made an uncommon vow. For 7 full years, this monk chose complete silence, believing that words stood between him and awakening. Each day, he moved quietly through the monastery like a passing breeze, sweeping pathways, caring for gardens, and sitting in meditation without ever speaking a sound. The other monks came to know him as a presence rather than a voice, communicating only through gentle movements and simple gestures. His discipline never wavered. His resolve was firm. He believed that every word left unspoken purified his path, that silence itself was the doorway to truth. One clear afternoon, as warm sunlight poured through the temple halls, a wealthy merchant arrived bearing offerings. His cart overflowed with sacks of rice, intended to sustain the monks through the winter months ahead. Wishing to show his generosity, the merchant insisted on carrying the heaviest sack into the main hall himself. But as effort strained his arms, the sack slipped from his grasp, tearing open upon the stone floor. Rice spilled everywhere. Thousands of pale grains scattered across the freshly swept ground, like snow falling suddenly from a clear sky. The merchant stood frozen, his face burning with embarrassment. And then, something unexpected happened. The silent monk, who had not uttered a sound for 7 years, suddenly erupted into laughter. His voice echoed through the halls, full and unrestrained, as if years of restrained joy were released all at once. The monks paused in disbelief. The merchant stared in confusion. Master Sengai emerged, drawn by the unfamiliar sound. The laughter continued, pure and open, until finally the monk grew quiet again. He gazed at the scattered rice, at the faces around him, and smiled with calm acceptance. His vow was broken, yet no regret lived in his eyes. Later that evening, as the monastery returned to stillness, Master Sengai found the monk gathering the last grains of rice from the corners of the hall. "Tell me," Sengai asked softly, "what led you to break your silence today?" The monk rested his broom and looked at his teacher. "Master," he said gently, "I realized I had been carrying the weight of unspoken words for 7 years. I believed withholding my voice would reveal truth. But when I saw the rice scattered, I understood that silence without wisdom is as empty as words without. Both require balance." He gestured to the clean floor. "Rice is meant to nourish. Scattered carelessly, it becomes disorder. My silence was meant to deepen my practice. Held too tightly, it became a cage around my heart. In that moment, I saw my attachment clearly. Not to speech, but to its absence." Master Sengai nodded, a quiet smile forming. "Your years of silence," he said, "have taught you when to speak. The wisdom of the Buddha gently reminds us, let your words be kind and timely. Let speech arise only when it brings no harm, and when it offers peace to those who receive it." At the heart of this teaching is a quiet understanding. Both silence and speech are simply instruments, never destinations on their own. Yet how easily we fall into the belief that spiritual growth must be rigid, extreme, or absolute. Zen reveals that the restless ego clings to extremes because they create an illusion of safety, progress, and control. The silent monk unknowingly turned his discipline into a form of subtle attachment. He gathered years of silence as if collecting precious objects, believing accumulation itself would open the gate to awakening. This story points us toward a deeper truth known as the middle way. The Buddha saw clearly that neither harsh austerity nor unchecked indulgence leads to freedom. In the same way, neither compulsive speaking nor enforced silence supports true awakening. What matters is responsiveness. Speaking when speech nurtures compassion and clarity. Remaining silent when silence protects the same qualities. Reflect gently on how often we construct unnecessary rules for ourselves, convinced that perfect adherence will somehow earn us peace or enlightenment. Perhaps you have told yourself that meditation must always last a precise length, that certain emotions are forbidden, or that spiritual life requires constant positivity. These invisible rules can become as confining as the silent monk's vow. Zen teacher Shunryu Suzuki once said, "You are perfect just as you are, and you could use a little improvement." This gentle paradox reveals the balance between acceptance and transformation, between resting and unfolding. Freedom does not arise from imprisoning ourselves within rigid practices. The scattered rice reminds us of the untidiness of genuine spiritual life. True practice is not about flawless control or perfect form. It is about meeting each moment with wisdom, humility, and even humor when our carefully built spiritual identities collapse. Often, the deepest teachings arrive not through success, but through the quiet exposure of our attachments, even attachments to virtues like silence or discipline. Tonight, as you softly reflect on your own practices and expectations, notice where energy may be bound by form rather than flowing with intention. What image of being spiritual might you be ready to loosen, perhaps even release with a gentle smile? The Buddha taught that the middle way is the path of safety and clarity. True wisdom does not live in extremes, but in the living balance of responding to each moment with openness and care. Our next story offers a tender teaching on impermanence, revealed through an unexpected guide. This is the story of the broken tea bowl. In a humble temple resting between quiet hills, there lived a Zen master known for his unconventional habits. Among them was his daily use of a cracked ceramic tea bowl that leaked with every sip. The bowl was old, its surface traced with fine fractures that deepened with each passing year. Whenever tea was poured, a slow drip escaped from its base, forming small pools upon the table. The students found this habit puzzling and, at times, uncomfortable, especially when guests visited the temple. Here was their revered teacher drinking from a damaged vessel while beautiful bowls remained untouched in the cupboards. To them, it seemed to lessen his dignity. "Master," a senior student would say gently, "please allow us to bring you a proper bowl. This one can no longer serve." Others echoed the request, offering elegant bowls gifted by generous patrons. Yet the master would always smile and decline. "This bowl and I know one another," he would say, placing a cloth beneath it to catch the drops. "We have shared many mornings together. Why abandon an old friend?" The students exchanged uncertain glances. Some believed this was stubbornness. Others wondered if their teacher was testing them or perhaps growing forgetful. Winter arrived harshly that year. Frost painted the windows each dawn, and the temple halls grew cold. One quiet morning, as the master lifted his familiar bowl for the first sip of tea, the inevitable occurred. The stress of time, temperature, and fragile cracks met in a single instant. The bowl split completely. A fracture raced upward like lightning, and the vessel fell apart in his hands. Tea spilled across the table. Fragments scattered on the floor. Steam rose gently from the warm liquid soaking into the wood. The student who witnessed this expected sorrow or frustration. Instead, he saw the master kneeling calmly, gathering each piece with great care. "Master, what are you doing?" the student asked, moving to help. The master looked up softly, holding a curved fragment in his palm. "I am still learning from my teacher," he said. The student looked around, confused. "But master, who is teaching you?" The master smiled and raised the fragment. "This bowl taught me that holding tea was never its true purpose. Showing impermanence was. For years, it revealed that nothing remains unchanged, that beauty lives even within decay, that usefulness and uselessness are temporary states." He placed the shard gently among the others. "Now it teaches through being broken what it could not teach while whole. In passing away, it reveals its deepest truth." The student watched as each fragment was collected with the same reverence once shown to the intact bowl. "Will you repair it, master?" he asked. The master laughed quietly. "Repair it? This bowl has completed its lesson. To repair it would be to repeat what has already been understood. Its wholeness taught one truth. Its brokenness teaches another. Ancient Buddhist wisdom reminds us, all conditioned things are impermanent. Practice with diligence. This story reveals that our greatest teachers often arrive disguised as the very things we wish to fix, replace, or preserve. Why do we resist the natural rhythm of change and decline? Zen points gently toward our longing for permanence. We want youth to remain, relationships to stay unchanged, and circumstances to improve and then freeze in place. This quiet resistance creates suffering, because it places us against the true nature of life itself. And as you rest here now, breathing softly, you may feel how understanding impermanence is not a loss, but a release, a deep permission to rest within what is, just as it is, moment by moment, dissolving gently into sleep. The broken tea bowl of Zen Master Aika reflects the fractures within our own lives, the very things we rush to repair or replace, instead of pausing to listen to what they are quietly teaching us. A relationship begins to crack. A body slowly ages, no longer working as it once did. A career path loses its glow. Dreams fail to take the shape we once imagined. We often see these moments as problems to be fixed, rather than as silent teachers waiting to be honored. What this story reveals is a deep awareness that impermanence is not something happening to us. It is the way wisdom gently opens. Every ending carries lessons that beginnings cannot give. Every loss illuminates truths that fullness and abundance never reveal. Every decline holds understandings that perfection once concealed. Gently reflect on the cracks in your own life. Perhaps a separation helped you discover your inner strength. An illness revealed what truly matters. A career disappointment guided you toward a more meaningful path. A friendship ended, uncovering patterns that needed to change. These are not failures to hold things together. They are the completion of learning cycles. A Zen master once wrote, "Everything that breaks is both a test and a healing." The broken tea bowl embodies this perfectly. Its damage tested master Ika's attachment to form, while healing the illusion that anything in this phenomenal world can last forever. The Buddha taught, "Of all footprints, the elephant's is the greatest." Likewise, of all contemplations, the contemplation of death is supreme. This is not a dark reflection, it is life-affirming wisdom. When we truly understand that all things are temporary, we stop trying to make the impermanent permanent and begin to appreciate the beauty present in each season of life. Tonight, as you notice signs of change within yourself, a face grown older, tastes that have shifted, or an object once precious that now feels ordinary, can you receive these as teachings rather than losses? Can you gather the fragments of what is passing with the same reverence that Zen Master Ike showed? The Buddha taught that whatever has a beginning has an ending. When we make peace with this truth, everything settles. The broken tea bowl reminds us that only by accepting endings can we fully receive the lessons each experience brings. And as our journey through Zen wisdom continues, we encounter a story of a most unusual seeker, the story of the practitioner who walked backward. On a clear autumn morning, as cool air settled over the monastery of Zen Master Bajui, a strange monk appeared at the gate. The gatekeeper rubbed his eyes, thinking he must be mistaken. It was indeed a monk, wearing a simple brown robe, carrying only a small bundle. But he was walking backward. Each step was slow and deliberate, his posture upright, yet he moved forward while facing behind him. News spread quickly through the monastery. Monks abandoned their morning duties to witness the unusual sight. The backward-walking practitioner moved along the stone path with remarkable steadiness, never stumbling. When he reached the main hall, he stood with his back turned and asked permission to stay. "Revered Master Bajui," he said softly, "I asked to remain here for a few days. I am one who seeks the way, though I may not walk as others do." Master Bajui, known for his patience with unconventional students, agreed. And the following 3 days became the strangest in the monastery's history. The practitioner continued all activities in reverse. When eating, he sat with his back to the table, reaching behind him for his bowl. In the meditation hall, he placed his cushion facing the rear wall while everyone else faced forward. Even when sleeping, he lay in the opposite direction from the other monks. At first, people were amused. Young monks whispered guesses. Perhaps he was keeping a vow. Perhaps he was injured, or practicing a secret method from a distant land. But gradually, his absolute consistency created a strange atmosphere. His presence made everyone more aware of direction and movement, of the path they themselves were walking. The backward-walking practitioner moved with deep mindfulness. Unable to see ahead, each step required complete presence. He listened carefully, sensed subtle fragrances, trusted intuition, as if another sense had quietly awakened. Paradoxically, this limitation sharpened his awareness. By the morning of the third day, Master Bajui could no longer contain his curiosity. As the practitioner slowly crossed the courtyard, Bajui approached from the side, the only angle where they could see one another. "Friend," Bajui said gently, "your presence has been a teaching for all of us. But I still do not understand what you are pointing to. Why do you walk backward?" The practitioner stopped, still facing away. When he spoke, his voice carried both sorrow and deep clarity. "Master, for 40 years I rushed toward enlightenment. I studied scriptures, practiced meditation, sought great teachers, accumulated merit. Always moving forward, always believing I was nearing the goal." He joined his palms softly. "Then one day, in what I thought was my deepest meditation, I realized I was moving away from the place I had never left. Each ambitious step towards spiritual attainment was a step away from the simple presence that is my true nature." At that moment, to everyone's astonishment, he slowly turned around. For the first time in 3 days, he faced forward, looking directly at Master Bajui with eyes shimmering with understanding. "But now I see," he smiled. "Forward and backward are both illusions. Moving toward enlightenment or away from it is still just movement. Truth does not reside in any direction." With that, he sat down right there on the stone path. His journey ended in that very place. He found what he had been seeking not by advancing or retreating, but by stopping completely. In that stillness, he touched complete understanding. The Buddha once said, "There is nowhere to go, nothing to do, and no one to become." The profound lesson here reveals the exhaustion of searching for what we already are, no matter how refined our spiritual practices may be. Why do we wear ourselves out on a spiritual journey, always trying to reach somewhere other than where we are? Zen teaches that the search itself is often the greatest obstacle. We build methods, gather knowledge, measure progress, while missing the simple truth that what we seek is the awareness listening to these words right now. And when you allow that awareness to gently settle, with nowhere to go at all, sleep can arrive naturally, softly, and in deep peace. The backwards walkers. 40 years of forward. Striving reflects the way. Most of us approach the spiritual path. We imagine awakening as a place to arrive, a condition to earn, a prize waiting at the end of enough effort. We attend retreats, study teachings, gather methods, and quietly measure ourselves along the way. Each step feels meaningful, yet something subtle continues to slip through our grasp. His 3 days of walking in reverse reveal the opposite extreme, the rejection of effort itself, the belief that seeking is the very obstacle, that abandoning all striving will bring freedom. Some traditions lean toward this view. Stop practicing, stop trying, let everything fall away. Yet even this can become another form of searching, simply moving in the opposite direction. Pause gently and consider your own path. How much energy is spent trying to become more mindful, more loving, more awakened? How often do you evaluate your meditation, judge your inner state, or compare your progress to others? These movements forward, though sincere, can quietly pull us away from simple presence. A Zen master once said, "Ordinary mind is the way." This points directly to the backwards walker's final insight. Neither advancing nor retreating reveals truth. Truth becomes clear only when movement itself comes to rest. Now, let us continue with a Zen story that gently illuminates the difference between seeking wisdom and truly meeting it. This is known as the story of the Master's Shadow. In a quiet monastery surrounded by bamboo and soft wind, there lived a young monk named Dokai. Unlike his fellow practitioners, who devoted themselves to sitting meditation, chanting, and mindful work, Dokai developed a very particular fascination. He became absorbed not in his teacher's words, but in his teacher's shadow. Dokai believed with unwavering certainty that this shadow held secret wisdom, teachings more subtle and powerful than those found in sutras or instruction. Each morning, he positioned himself carefully in the meditation hall, not to follow the breath, but to observe how Master Mujo's shadow stretched across the wooden floor. He watched how it lengthened at dawn, shortened as the sun rose, and vanished entirely at midday. During walking meditation, while others attended to their steps, Dokai tracked the shadow's movement across gravel and stone. He noted how it bent around rocks, dissolved through latticework, and merged with the shadows of bamboo swaying in the breeze. His notebooks filled with sketches and observations, convinced he was recording profound insights. When Master Mujo taught in the afternoon light, Dokai barely heard the teachings. Instead, his attention followed the shifting darkness on the tatami mats, interpreting every movement as a hidden message meant only for him. The other monks found this behavior strange but harmless. Master Mujo, however, observed quietly. He noticed how Dokai's awareness never settled in the present moment, but chased reflections cast by form. He saw how the practice had become external, disconnected from direct experience. For many months, the master said nothing. He understood that some illusions must be fully lived before they dissolve. Then one day, thick clouds covered the sky from morning until night. The light turned flat and gray. No shadows appeared anywhere in the monastery. Dokai wandered the halls in growing distress, searching every room, every courtyard, unable to find his teacher's shadow. Without it, he felt lost, unable to practice, unable to learn. During the midday teaching, he sat restless and anxious, eyes darting across the evenly lit room. For the first time, he realized with unease that his entire practice depended on external conditions. After the teaching, Master Mujo approached him gently. "Dokai," he said softly, "you seem unsettled today. What troubles you?" "I cannot find your shadow," Dokai replied, frustration trembling in his voice. "The wisdom I study has disappeared. How can I continue without it?" Master Mujo looked at him with compassion. "Where is your teacher right now?" he asked. Dokai searched the room again, confused. "I cannot see your shadow, Master. Without it, I do not know where to look." In that moment, Master Mujo lifted his foot and stamped it firmly on the wooden floor. The sharp sound echoed through the hall, immediate and undeniable. Dokai startled, his attention pulled suddenly into the present. "This student studies darkness," the master said calmly, "and ignores the light that creates it." Then he added, "The Buddha taught, seek no refuge outside yourself." What this story reveals is a quiet truth. Wisdom cannot be found in reflections, symbols, or projections of awakening. It lives only in direct awareness itself. Why do we become fascinated with the shadows of wisdom rather than wisdom itself? Zen points to the ego's subtle habit of turning even truth into something external to collect. Dokai represents the part of us that wants enlightenment to be something we can observe, analyze, and possess. We chase special experiences, unusual states, dramatic insights, while overlooking the ordinary miracle of present awareness. The shadow stands for all the places we search incorrectly, in theories, phenomena, and borrowed light. Notice how often you may have done the same. Perhaps you were drawn to peak experiences rather than the quiet steadiness of being aware. Perhaps you studied enlightenment instead of resting in the awareness where understanding naturally arises. A shadow exists only because of light. Experiences appear only because awareness is already present. Yet we forget the source and become captivated by what passes through it. We observe thoughts instead of the stillness behind them. We analyze emotions instead of resting in the space that holds them. Zen Master Dogen taught, to study the Buddha way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. Dokai studied what was outside him, while the true teaching waited within. The cloudy day symbolizes those moments when familiar supports vanish. Meditation feels restless. Teachers are absent. Certainty dissolves. And in that openness, if we allow it, something deeper becomes visible. A quiet awareness that has never depended on shadows at all. There are moments when the experiences we rely upon simply do not appear. The calm does not arrive. The insight does not unfold. The familiar support is absent. In these moments, we quietly discover how much of our practice has been resting on conditions rather than on the open awareness that has never left us. Master Mujo's firm step upon the wooden floor reveals the immediacy of awakened presence. No symbols are required. No special atmosphere must be created. The sound arises and dissolves within the very awareness Dokai had been searching for through years of careful observation. The teaching was never hidden. It lives in the plain honesty of this very moment. Tonight, as you rest and reflect upon your own seeking, you may gently notice where attention has been drawn to reflections rather than to the light itself. What intricate spiritual pursuits might be softening now, ready to fall away, allowing a simple recognition of what has always been present? The Buddha taught that when you light a lamp for another, your own path is illuminated as well. The true teacher is not the shadow cast by wisdom, but the awareness that makes all experience visible. And so, we continue together with a story that reveals Buddha nature in a place few would expect. This is the story of the Laughing Stone. Master Fugai was known throughout the countryside as a teacher whose ways often confused those who studied with him. His small temple rested on a hillside overlooking rice fields, where the steady sound of flowing water from a nearby stream softened each passing day. Of all his unusual habits, none puzzled his students more than his relationship with an ordinary stone that rested upon his teaching desk. The stone itself held no obvious distinction. About the size of a clenched fist, smoothed by years of wind and rain, dull gray with faint mineral lines. It could have been lifted from any riverbank or mountain path. Yet Master Fugai treated this simple rock as though it were the most treasured object in the monastery. Several times each day, during teachings, meals, or moments of quiet sitting, he would suddenly lift the stone and burst into deep, uncontrollable laughter. His laughter was warm and unrestrained, rising from his belly, shaking his body, bringing tears to his eyes. He would hold the stone close, gazing at it with fresh wonder, and the laughter would swell until he had to pause for breath. The students watched in silence, exchanging puzzled glances. Some wondered if their teacher had lost his senses. Others suspected they were missing a profound lesson hidden just beyond their understanding. A few monks began collecting stones from the garden, examining them closely, hoping to uncover what made Fugai's stones so amusing. Others invented theories. Perhaps the rock came from a sacred mountain or had once belonged to an ancient master. The laughter became a familiar rhythm of monastery life. In the middle of serious philosophical discussions, Master Fugai might suddenly lift the stone and dissolve into laughter. During formal tea ceremonies, a glance toward the desk could trigger quiet chuckles. Even in solemn gatherings, the stone sometimes drew a smile that seemed inappropriate to the students. As weeks turned into months, the stone became legendary. Visiting teachers heard of the laughing stone and asked to see it, only to witness another wave of joyful laughter. Some left convinced Fugai was a holy madman. Others simply thought him mad. The students remained devoted, yet increasingly restless with their confusion. One morning, while Master Fugai was teaching on the nature of Buddha awareness, he reached for the stone as usual. This time, however, he paused, holding it gently in both hands. A young monk named Korin, long troubled by curiosity, seized the moment. "Master," he said, bowing deeply, his voice filled with urgency, "I cannot fully receive your teachings while wondering about that stone. I have examined many rocks and found nothing amusing in them. Please tell us what we fail to see." Master Fugai looked down at the stone resting in his palms, then back at his students. His eyes shimmered with familiar joy, though he restrained his laughter long enough to speak. "This stone," he said softly, lifting it for all to see, "has been sitting in meditation for millions of years. It has never moved toward enlightenment, never sought it, never asked a single question about awakening." He slowly turned the stone in his hands. "It has never read a sutra, followed a teacher, or practiced a method. It has never worried about progress, never compared itself to other stones, never doubted whether it was enough." The students leaned forward, a quiet recognition beginning to form. "And yet," Master Fugai continued with gentle amusement, "you humans believe you must struggle to discover Buddha nature. Strain and search, collect teachings and measure yourselves, while your true nature rests as effortlessly present as this stone." With reverence equal to that given to the Buddha himself, he placed the stone back upon the desk, smiling softly as the hall settled into silence. "I laugh," Master Fugai continued softly, "because this stone has been awakened longer than any of us, and it has never once wondered what awakening means. It rests fully aligned with its own nature, moment after moment, without effort, without concern, without fear." The Buddha once taught that all beings are Buddha by nature. This story gently reveals the quiet humor hidden within spiritual striving. We wear ourselves down trying to become what we have never ceased to be. Why do we turn awakening into a complex achievement, when the awareness searching for it is already the very expression of Buddha nature? Zen reminds us that our true nature is already complete, already free, already awake. The stone stands as a symbol of this effortless wholeness, entire unto itself, peaceful without improvement, whole without intention. It does not seek release from suffering, and therefore it does not create suffering through seeking. Often, we unknowingly generate pain through the attempt to escape pain. We build elaborate practices to attain a peace that is already our foundation. We strive to become mindful, forgetting that awareness itself is already present. We try to cultivate compassion, unaware that love is woven into the fabric of our being. Consider how much energy is spent trying to become a better practitioner. How often the mind measures progress, compares itself with others, or quietly judges its own worth. Beneath these efforts lies the belief that something is missing, that this moment is not yet enough. The laughing stone gently dissolves this belief. Does a wave need instruction to be water? Does a blossom require training to open? Does the sky practice being vast? Buddha nature is not something we manufacture. It is something we realize was never absent. Master Fugai's laughter is the joy of this realization. When it becomes clear that we have been chasing what we already hold, striving for what we already are, a soft cosmic humor reveals itself. Practice may clear the dust from our eyes, but it cannot create what has always been here. Zen teacher Alan Watts spoke of this reversal, that the harder happiness is pursued, the further it slips away. The stone quietly resolves this paradox. It is content without reaching, complete without becoming something else. This does not mean we abandon practice or growth. Instead, we rest upon a different ground. Practice becomes an expression of awakening, not a means to obtain it. The stone does not meditate to become enlightened. If stones could sit in meditation, they would do so simply as a natural expression of what they are. The Buddha said, "Look within. You are the Buddha." The stone's millions of years of stillness reflect the timeless presence of awareness, needing no cultivation, no refinement, no special circumstance to exist perfectly. Tonight, as you rest here, can you sense the stone-like Buddha nature within you? The part that has never been disturbed by effort, never enhanced by success, never diminished by struggle. Can you feel a peace that requires nothing? An awareness that knows without trying? A love that flows without seeking an object? As Master Fugai's laughter reminds us, the greatest spiritual joke is that what we have searched for with such devotion has been quietly waiting within us all along, steady and patient, like a stone resting on a teacher's desk. Now, let us gently turn toward another Zen story, one that speaks to the irreplaceable nature of direct transmission. This is the story of Bankai and the messenger. In the busy capital city, where merchants called, out in crowded markets, and scholars debated, beneath drifting steam tea houses, the respected Zen master Bankai had completed another season of teaching at one of the great temples. Known for his clarity and ability to point students directly to their own Buddha nature, Bankai lived simply, traveling from place to place wherever sincere seekers gathered. As he prepared to depart, carefully folding his few belongings into a worn travel bundle, a finely dressed man approached with hurried courtesy. His silk robes and measured posture suggested someone familiar with noble circles, perhaps an attendant to one of the families supporting the temple. "Venerable Master," the man said, bowing deeply, "I come on behalf of the Baron, a man of sincere devotion to your teachings. He longs to meet you personally, but urgent duties have detained him today. Would you consider remaining one more day, so he may have the honor of learning from you tomorrow?" Though eager to continue onward where other students waited, Bankai recognized the sincerity beneath the request. The path of teaching required flexibility, even when inconvenient. "I will remain," he replied simply. Unpacking his bundle once more, the master settled into the temple quarters. That evening passed in quiet meditation, his mind open and unhurried, preparing for what he assumed would be a meaningful meeting with a sincere seeker. Over the years, he had encountered many people of status who approached the Dharma with genuine humility. Morning arrived with clear light and the deep resonance of temple bells calling the community to sit. Bankai waited calmly in the meeting room as the appointed hour approached, resting in the same still awareness that had always guided his steps. Yet instead of the Baron himself, the same finely dressed gentleman returned once more, his posture slightly lowered, a trace of unease visible in his expression. "Master," he said softly, apology weighing down his voice, "I bring unfortunate news." The Baron had been summoned away by urgent affairs that could not be postponed, matters of governance demanding his immediate presence. Still, the gentleman explained, the Baron had not abandoned his wish to receive instruction. He had asked that this messenger stand in his place, to receive the teaching directly and carry it back with absolute fidelity. Every word, every detail, would be remembered and conveyed without error. The man hesitated briefly, then continued. "The Baron's question concerns the very essence of mind. He seeks to know the true nature of consciousness and how it may be realized directly. If you would offer your guidance, I will transmit it to him exactly as spoken." Bankai listened without interruption, his face open and serene. When the request was finished, the master remained silent for a time, not weighing words, but holding the whole moment, the absent seeker, the earnest intermediary, and the subtle impossibility hidden within the request itself. At last, Bankai spoke, his voice plain and unadorned. "The way of Zen," he said, "is difficult enough to convey even when teacher and student sit together, breathing the same air. To attempt its transmission through another, no matter how sincere, makes it not merely difficult, but impossible." With this, the master said nothing more. He simply returned to stillness, his silence completing the teaching his words could not extend. The gentleman waited, perhaps expecting further explanation, a method, or an alternative offering. None came. Eventually, with polite confusion and a deep bow, he withdrew from the temple grounds. The Buddha once taught, "Be a lamp unto yourself." This quiet truth reveals itself in Bankai's gentle refusal to turn awakening into something transferable. Spiritual realization cannot be passed along like a letter or a lesson, because it is not information, it is transformation. Why do we so often approach the path as though it were a subject to be mastered, knowledge to be gathered and carried by others? Zen teaches that awakening is not an idea to be grasped, but a reality to be directly lived. Like the taste of cool water to a thirsty mouth, it cannot be fully described. It must be known from within. The Baron's question about consciousness reflects a familiar habit. We wish to understand awareness as a concept, to hold it in the mind, to possess it as knowledge. Yet consciousness cannot become an object. because it is the very field in which objects appear. It is like trying to look directly at your own seeing. The looking itself is what you are. Notice how often spiritual wisdom is treated as information rather than presence. We read about meditation instead of sitting quietly. We analyze enlightenment instead of noticing this moment. We ask what mind is, instead of gently turning toward what we call mind and resting there. Zen Master Dogen once said that to study the Buddha way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. Within this paradox lies the reason true transmission must be direct. The self that seeks to understand awakening as an idea is the very illusion that must soften and dissolve. Tonight, as your body grows heavy and your breath slows, you are not asked to carry wisdom anywhere, nor to understand anything at all. Simply rest in the awareness that is already present, quiet, complete, and needing no messenger to arrive. This clear seeing does not arise through collecting ideas or gathering spiritual theories, but through gentle, intimate attention to what is happening right now. The messenger in the earlier story reflects our own habit of approaching awakening indirectly. We prefer to stand at a distance, attempting to examine awareness as though it were an object separate from ourselves, something we can observe without risk. Yet awareness is not something we possess. It is what we are. It cannot be owned, stored, or passed along, because every moment of experience is already an expression of it. Bankai's silence after his brief words was not an absence of teaching, but the teaching itself. In Zen, silence often speaks more clearly than language ever could. The quiet space between thoughts. The soft pause between one breath and the next. The open field in which sensations, emotions, and memories appear and dissolve. These cannot be captured by explanation, yet they can be directly recognized the moment we stop trying to hold them with the mind. This does not mean teachers are unnecessary or that spiritual guidance has no value. Rather, true teaching does not give answers to carry away. It gently points us back toward our own immediate experience. The role of a teacher is not to deliver enlightenment, but to create the conditions in which students may recognize what has never been missing. Tonight, as you simply notice that you are aware of these words, aware of your body, aware of the space in which sounds and thoughts arise, can you look directly at this awareness rather than thinking about it? Can you rest with experience as it is, without measuring or interpreting it through borrowed understanding? The Buddha advised, work out your own liberation with care. No one else can walk this path in your place. It requires your own steps, your own breath, your own quiet willingness to look honestly at what you have always been, yet perhaps never fully noticed. Now let us turn gently toward another story, one that reveals the difference between seeing and being seen, between wisdom itself and the appearance of wisdom. This is the tale of the blind man and his lantern. One evening, as night settled over a small village like a soft dark cloak, a blind man prepared to return home after visiting a close friend. They had spent the day sharing tea, conversation, and the easy silence that arises between those who feel no need to impress one another. As the hour grew late, the blind man reached for his walking stick and wrapped his cloak more tightly against the cool air. His friend looked out at the narrow streets, now swallowed by darkness, and felt a sudden concern. "Please," the friend said kindly, "take my lantern with you. The streets are very dark tonight, and there are many obstacles along the way." The blind man paused, a faint smile touching his face. "Why would I need a lantern?" He asked gently. You know I cannot see. Light will not help me find my way. My feet know these roads, and my other senses guide me well enough. Yes, the friend replied after a moment, but perhaps the lantern is not for you to see. Perhaps it is so others can see you and avoid colliding with you as they move through the darkness. This seemed reasonable. Though the blind man navigated the world without sight, he understood that others depended on their eyes. Of course, he said warmly. How thoughtful. He accepted the lantern with gratitude. It was a simple, elegant object, thin rice paper stretched across bamboo ribs, a single candle resting safely inside. His friend lit the flame, and a warm glow spread across the ground near the blind man's feet. Though he could not see the light, he felt its warmth and trusted that others would notice him from afar. He set off down the familiar path, the lantern swaying softly at his side. He felt considerate and secure, believing he was protecting both himself and others who might share the darkened street. But he had gone only a short distance when suddenly, another traveler walked straight into him. The collision startled them both. The lantern lurched, and the blind man staggered before regaining his balance. Why don't you watch where you're going? He called out, irritation rising. Can't you see this lantern? I carry it so people like you won't run into me. The other traveler looked at the lantern and laughed gently. My friend, he said, why don't you light the candle? Your lantern is completely dark. The blind man reached out and felt the frame. The candle had gone out soon after he left his friend's home. Without realizing it, he had been walking through the night holding an empty shell, believing he carried light when there was none. The Buddha once said that thousands of candles may be lit from a single flame without diminishing it. This story reveals the difference between holding the form of wisdom and carrying wisdom itself. How often do we cling to the container, words, symbols, practices, while forgetting to kindle the living flame within? Zen teaches that insight does not arise from what we carry, but from what is awake inside us. As your breath slows and your body grows heavier, you are invited to notice this difference gently, without judgment, and allow the light that needs no lantern to remain quietly present. The blind man's experience feels deeply familiar to anyone who has spent time on an inner path. We gather teachings like lanterns, surround ourselves with methods, rituals, and ideas, and quietly assume that owning these things means we are already illuminated. Yet if the flame of direct experience is not alive inside, we are still moving through darkness while believing we carry light. Consider your own spiritual or philosophical understanding. How much of what you feel confident about has been lived, breathed, and tested in real moments? And how much remains only an idea you carry gently but never ignite? This distinction reveals itself most clearly when life brings collision. Moments of conflict, loss, fatigue, or uncertainty quietly ask whether our understanding can walk, or whether it only speaks. Zen practice often speaks of the difference between knowing about and knowing directly. You may read every description ever written about the sweetness of fruit, but until you taste it, the knowledge remains borrowed. In the same way, we can collect endless reflections on peace, kindness, and wisdom, while never fully allowing these qualities to shape our responses. The blind man did not intend harm. His wish was sincere. But sincerity alone could not replace the simple function of a burning flame. This is the quiet challenge of all spiritual practice. Not appearing wise. Not wishing to be awakened. but allowing insight to become something lived, moment by moment. Zen Master Dogen taught, to study the Buddha way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. The lantern symbolizes the image we hold of ourselves as someone who understands, someone advanced, someone who has arrived. As long as protecting this image becomes our priority, the candle of fresh awareness often remains unlit. The traveler who collided with the blind man was not cruel. Sometimes truth arrives as impact, gently but firmly revealing that the flame has gone out. At times, others show us what we cannot see alone. They reveal when we are relying on old insight, when memory has replaced presence. Look softly at your own experience. When do you find yourself holding an unlit lantern? Perhaps when you offer guidance you have not yet embodied. When you speak of calm while tension hums beneath your breath. When you present certainty about something still unfolding within you. These moments are not failures. They are invitations. The beauty of this teaching is that discovering darkness is not the end. It is the beginning. The instant we realize the lantern is empty, we can pause, seek flame, and truly see again. The lantern itself is not the problem. It simply requires what gives it life. In relationships, work, and practice, this pattern repeats endlessly. We learn the language, adopt the role, wear the shape of wisdom, while the living essence quietly waits to be remembered. The counselor whose own heart feels distant. The teacher who has stopped listening. The practitioner who clings to form while forgetting softness. Each carries a lantern that longs to be lit again. The Buddha taught, better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace. One moment of genuine presence illuminates more than years of borrowed understanding. Zen practice gently asks us, again and again, is the flame alive right now? Are these words arising from presence or from habit? Is warmth being offered or only the shape of warmth? Candles naturally go out. That is their nature. Wind passes. Wax melts. Light flickers. The practice is not avoiding darkness, but noticing it honestly and relighting without shame. Tonight, as your body softens and the mind grows quiet, you may gently reflect on the lanterns you carry. Which ones are glowing? Which ones are waiting? There is no need for judgment, only care, only attention. For as the Buddha reminded us, 3 things cannot remain hidden forever: the sun, the moon, and the truth. Unlit lanterns reveal themselves through life's gentle collisions. Yet rather than waiting for impact, we can choose to tend the inner flame with patience, knowing that when it burns, it lights not only our own way, but offers guidance to others without effort. Now, let us move forward into a story about the humility of not knowing and the quiet power of honesty. This is the teaching of the Emperor and the Zen Master Gudo. Seated within the quiet chamber where affairs of the realm were usually weighed and decided, the Emperor felt at ease presenting even the most profound questions to this respected master. If anyone might hold insight into life's deepest mysteries, he reasoned, surely it would be a Zen teacher who had devoted decades to stillness, inquiry, and disciplined practice. Master Gudo, the Emperor began, speaking with a confidence shaped by years of command. There is a question that has unsettled philosophers and sages throughout history. What becomes of an enlightened person after death? Surely one who has realized truth would understand such matters. The Emperor anticipated a subtle explanation, perhaps reflections on rebirth, karmic continuity, or the persistence of awakened awareness beyond the body. He imagined teachings about invisible realms, or the merging of individual consciousness into some vast, eternal presence. He was prepared to receive words that might soothe his curiosity about this ultimate unknown. Instead, Master Buddha met his gaze with complete calm and answered with disarming honesty. "How could I possibly know?" The emperor paused, surprised. Here stood a teacher honored across the land for wisdom, openly acknowledging uncertainty about what seemed a fundamental spiritual question. "But Master," the emperor pressed gently, disbelief softening his voice, "you are an awakened guide. Surely you must know something of these matters." Buddha replied without hesitation, his tone simple and clear. "Yes, I am enlightened, but I am not dead." Within this brief exchange rests a deep teaching about the nature of true wisdom and the humility it carries. As the Buddha taught, genuine understanding begins with knowing the limits of one's knowing. This ancient insight illuminates a quiet maturity, the courage to admit uncertainty rather than invent answers. Why do we expect spiritual teachers to explain what can only be discovered directly? Zen practice emphasizes the difference between speculation and lived experience, between ideas we inherit and truths we embody. Master Buddha's reply was not a lack of insight, but a precise expression of it. He refused to theorize about experiences he had not yet encountered, even when questioned by supreme authority. His honesty carried more wisdom than any elaborate explanation ever could. Reflect for a moment on daily life. How often do we pretend certainty where none exists? We offer strong opinions on complex matters, give advice on lives we do not live, and claim confidence about outcomes no one can foresee. So often, we choose appearance over authenticity. The emperor assumed enlightenment meant access to hidden knowledge. Yet awakening does not grant cosmic information. It transforms our relationship with uncertainty itself. In Zen, this is called don't know mind, an open awareness that does not rush to fill silence with belief. This is not ignorance. It is clarity without pretense. Suzuki Roshi taught that this openness is closer to truth than any fixed conclusion. A living master understands living. What lies beyond death remains unknown until death arrives. The Buddha himself urged inquiry over belief, direct seeing over inherited certainty. Buddha's teaching reveals a gentle freedom, the relief of releasing the need to have answers for everything. How much mental energy is spent imagining futures we cannot know? How much suffering arises from fearing possibilities that exist only in thought? Look softly at your own life. Where do you avoid saying, "I don't know"? What would change if uncertainty were allowed to breathe? The emperor sought answers about death from someone vibrantly alive. Yet wisdom may not lie in explaining what comes later, but in meeting what is here fully. The mystery of death is honored not by solving it, but by living honestly in its presence. Tonight, as questions arise about the future, about others, about existence itself, remember Master Buddha's quiet clarity. Perhaps don't know is not a weakness, but a doorway into deeper peace. For as ancient wisdom reminds us, true understanding begins where false certainty ends. Now, let us continue with a story about the roots of freedom and the heart's deepest longing. This is the teaching of the student and the master's heart. In a tranquil monastery garden where cherry blossoms drifted like gentle snow, a young student approached his teacher during the calm of evening meditation. The master sat beneath an old maple tree, twilight washing the sky in soft hues of violet and gold. The student had practiced diligently for many years. Yet recently, questions had surfaced that reached beyond form and instruction. Sitting beside his teacher, he spoke with quiet honesty. "Master, when I was young, I longed deeply for my family to be proud of me. I wanted to achieve, to succeed, to give them reason to smile. Were you ever like this?" The master turned toward him with warmth, recognizing the familiar ache in the student's eyes. After a moment of silence, he answered gently, "Very much so." The student felt relief. Why did you desire their pride so strongly? What fueled that longing? The master smiled softly. "I wanted their love to feel secure. I believed that if I pleased them, their acceptance would never waver." He paused, then continued quietly. But beneath that desire was something deeper. The student leaned closer, listening with his whole being. "I sought their approval," the master said, "because through it, I hoped to grant myself permission to be at peace. I believed their pride would prove my worth, even to myself. That was the root of all my striving." The teacher fell silent for a moment, his eyes resting on the sky as the earliest stars quietly revealed themselves. Then, softly, he continued, "There came a day when something within me opened to a new understanding. I saw that I could turn my attention inward and ask a gentler question. What if I no longer searched for permission to exist? What if I could meet myself with acceptance, without conditions, without waiting for praise or recognition? What if my sense of peace no longer relied on the voices outside me, but arose naturally from within?" As these reflections settled into the space between them, the student felt a subtle warmth in his chest. He imagined a life where joy was no longer fragile, no longer dependent on agreement or rejection. A life where worth did not rise and fall with opinion, but remained steady, like breath moving quietly in the body. What if your value could remain unchanged, as constant as the rhythm of your heart, regardless of how the world responded? The student sensed that the teacher was pointing toward a freedom he had never considered before. And in that moment, something gentle yet powerful began to awaken within him. "Yes," the master said with a calm nod. "That was the true beginning of my path. Not the pursuit of something distant, but the recognition of what had always been whole." After a long pause filled with stillness, the student asked, "Did the desire for their approval ever truly disappear?" The teacher smiled softly. "The habits of the ego do not dissolve in a single night. The longing still arose, but my relationship to it changed. I no longer mistook those thoughts for who I was." He motioned toward the quiet garden, now alive with flickering lights. "I learned to watch the need for approval the way one watches fireflies, appearing briefly, glowing, then fading away. I could see them with kindness without grasping. They no longer decided my worth." "So you no longer cared what others thought?" the student asked. The master answered gently, "I listened. I respected their views. But I no longer carried them as a burden. Their opinions became like passing weather, sometimes calm, sometimes unsettled, but no longer the source of my inner peace." A quiet joy rested on the master's face. "Never had I felt lighter than when I released myself in this way. It was as if unseen chains, worn for many years, finally loosened and fell away. The love I had searched for in the world revealed itself as something that had always lived within me." The Buddha reminds us that if we truly love ourselves, we would not harm ourselves with harsh thoughts, unkind actions, or self-destructive choices. This insight touches the heart of the Master's realization. Much of our suffering grows from the belief that love must be earned, that we must prove our worth through achievement or approval. Yet here lies a quiet truth. Self-love is not a prize to be won. It is a natural inheritance. We arrive in this world complete, not because of what we do, but because we are. Still, unconditional acceptance can feel unfamiliar. From early life, we absorb lessons suggesting love is conditional, granted for obedience, success, or pleasing others. Over time, we speak to ourselves in the same way we were spoken to, often with judgment rather than care. Our world reinforces this misunderstanding, encouraging us to seek fulfillment outside ourselves. Again and again, we are told that something is missing, and so we spend precious energy managing impressions, shaping ourselves to be accepted, measuring our worth through response and reaction. When we rest in unconditional self-acceptance, something softens. We are able to receive kindness without clinging and meet criticism without collapse. Our inner foundation remains steady. The Buddha taught that no one in the universe is more deserving of your compassion than you yourself. This is not self-absorption. It is recognition of truth. Now, in the quiet of this moment, notice the awareness that is listening. The presence that observes thoughts, sensations, and breath remains untouched by success or failure. It is open and spacious, like the sky itself. What would it be like to treat this presence with gentleness? To offer yourself the patience you would give a child learning to walk, or the understanding you would give a dear friend in pain? As the Buddha taught, hostility is never resolved by hostility. Only through gentleness does it dissolve. In the same way, self-judgment cannot heal itself. Only by meeting ourselves as we are do we create the conditions for true transformation. And in rediscovering this quiet love within, we realize that the freedom we once sought through approval was never absent. It has always been here, moving softly with each breath, steady and alive in the heart. In the next story, we will explore the difference between outward devotion and inner understanding. It is known as the teaching of the head that wished to be cut away. Long ago, in the great monastery of Chao, where hundreds of monks gathered for study and meditation, the days unfolded in silence, following rhythms older than memory. When the sitting before dawn had ended, and the faint glow of morning brushed the distant peaks, the monks quietly moved into the rhythm of the day. Some tended the soil in the gardens, their hands meeting earth with mindful care. Others prepared simple meals, copied ancient teachings, or repaired the wooden halls weathered by time. Each task unfolded without hurry, as though the monastery itself was breathing through them. On one such morning, the elder abbot, Cho Ren, began his slow walk through the grounds. He moved without sound, attentive not only to the buildings and paths, but to the inner state of those who lived there. His presence was gentle, yet carried a depth that often unsettled the confident and awakened the sincere. Among the monks, it was said that a single sentence from him could open a gate, or quietly close one. As he passed behind the main hall of meditation, where silence gathered twice each day, he noticed a young monk seated alone in the shadow of the wooden beams. The monk appeared absorbed in practice, yet separate from the communal flow of activity. The abbot paused and spoke softly, his voice barely stirring the air. "Brother," he said, "where have those of true virtue gone?" The words sounded simple, almost casual. Yet those who knew the abbot understood that such questions were never ordinary. Was he asking about location, realization, or something deeper still? The young monk looked up, confidence bright in his eyes. He had studied diligently and believed he understood the essence of the teachings. "They have gone to their work," he answered calmly, gesturing toward the monastery grounds where others labored. His tone carried certainty, as though virtue were clearly defined by visible effort. What followed shattered that certainty. Without urgency, the abbot reached into his robe and withdrew a small knife, its edge catching the pale morning light. The monk's breath tightened. But instead of threatening him, the elder did something unexpected. With serene composure, he exposed his own neck and placed the knife gently into the monk's trembling hands. "My duties are many," the abbot said quietly, as if making a simple request. "If you would remove my head, it would greatly ease my burden." The world seemed to stop. The monk stared at the blade, at the offered throat of the one he revered. His mind searched desperately for meaning, rules, explanations, anything solid to grasp. Finding none, fear overtook him. The knife slipped from his hands, clattering to the ground, and he fled, heart-pounding, thoughts in chaos. The abbot retrieved the blade, returned it to his robe, and continued his walk, his face unchanged, his steps unbroken. From this moment arises a teaching not about violence, but about vision. The Buddha reminded us that the journey itself matters more than the destination. Here we see the vast distance between knowing words and living truth. The thinking mind gathers ideas like ornaments, arranging them neatly, mistaking order for wisdom. The young monk's answer revealed a division between work and stillness, virtue and rest. Yet awakening knows no such separation. By offering his own neck, the abbot asked without words, "What is true work? What is real responsibility?" When suffering appears, do we respond with habit or with clarity? So often we divide life into sacred and ordinary, meaningful and trivial. This division blinds us to the truth that every moment calls for presence. Sometimes compassion requires cutting through our most cherished roles, even our spiritual identity. A Zen master once said, "If you meet the Buddha, let go of the Buddha." Not as destruction, but as freedom from attachment to ideas. When concepts harden, they become barriers. The young monk could speak of virtue, but when invited into direct compassion, he turned away. His understanding had not yet ripened into action. Reflect quietly now. When others bring their suffering to you, do you offer explanations or presence? Are you willing to release your certainty to truly meet what is needed? Zen practice cultivates what is called great not knowing, not doubt born of fear, but openness beyond concepts. Awakening may ask us to surrender even our spiritual comfort. As night approaches and the mind softens, notice how compassion moves when it is free of conditions. The Buddha taught that caring for others and caring for oneself are not two separate acts. From here, the path continues into another teaching, one that reveals the difference between helping and holding on. Two monks once traveled together along a mountain path, journeying toward a distant monastery. Both lived by strict vows, including one that limited physical contact, meant to protect their practice. At a swollen river, made dangerous by storms, they encountered a woman standing uncertainly at the edge. The current surged, heavy with debris, and fear was clear in her posture. She asked softly for help. One monk immediately retreated into thought, reviewing rules and reasons. The other saw only the danger before them. Without hesitation, he lifted her gently, carried her across, and set her down safely. Hours later, the first monk could contain himself no longer. His mind burned with judgment. "How could you do that?" he demanded. "Our vows." The other monk replied calmly, "I put her down at the river. You are still carrying her." This is the quiet wisdom of release. Holding anger, the Buddha said, is like grasping a burning coal. It is we who are burned. Much of our suffering does not come from events themselves, but from replaying them long after they have passed. As you rest now, allow the river to flow. Let what has already crossed be released. The path ahead unfolds gently, moment by moment, breath by breath. The unrest of the first monk reveals how strict attachment to rules can quietly drift away from the compassion that once gave those rules life. One monk saw danger and answered with kindness, then allowed the moment to pass like water flowing downstream. The other held the experience tightly, carrying it step by step, letting it grow heavier with every mile. Reflect softly on your own habits of the mind. How often do you replay words already spoken, revisit wounds long healed, or rehearse moments that no longer exist except in thought? How much energy is spent holding what has already ended? The woman crossed the river in moments, yet the monk carried her for hours, entirely within himself. This teaching reaches far beyond broken vows or dramatic moments. We carry sentences spoken years ago, mistakes made in youth, small embarrassments that no one else remembers. While the present moment quietly waits, full of breath and possibility, our attention is busy tending memories like fading echoes. Zen practice invites us to see the difference between wise response and needless clinging. The second monk acted when action was required, then released the event completely. He did not argue with himself, measure opinions, or replay the scene again and again. A Zen saying reminds us that because everything changes, everything is workable. The crossing of the river was temporary. It arose, fulfilled its purpose, and dissolved. Only attachment gave it continued life as suffering. The Buddha offered gentle guidance. Release what has passed, release what has not yet arrived, release even what is unfolding now. Do not struggle to understand. Do not force outcomes. Freedom appears when we allow experiences to complete themselves. Look inward now and notice what you may still be carrying. Old resentments, regrets, conversations that disturb your sleep. They persist only because the mind keeps lifting them again and again. What would it feel like to set them down? There is a quiet irony here. The monk who broke the rule felt no distress, while the one who followed it perfectly suffered deeply. This shows us that suffering often grows not from what we do, but from how we cling afterward. As night deepens and thoughts soften, notice when the mind reaches back into the past. When it does, remember the monk who set his burden down at the river. See if you can do the same, feeling the lightness that comes from traveling without yesterday on your shoulders. The Buddha taught that in the end, three things matter most: how fully we live, how deeply we love, and how gently we let go. True practice is not perfection, but presence, meeting what is here, then allowing it to pass. And so the journey continues, now turning toward a teaching on fearlessness and boundless compassion. This is the story of the thief and the Zen master. One quiet evening, as twilight painted the sky in soft hues of violet and gold, the Zen master Shikyo sat alone in his modest dwelling, reciting ancient verses. His voice flowed slowly, each syllable resting gently in the air. Candlelight flickered against the walls, and the room seemed to breathe with him, steady and calm. Without warning, the stillness was broken. The door burst open, and a man rushed inside, gripping a sword that caught the candle's glow. His clothes were torn, his breath uneven, his eyes filled with desperation. He believed the house an easy target. A solitary monk would offer no resistance. "Give me your money or your life," the man demanded, fear and force trembling together in his voice. He expected panic. He expected pleading. Instead, the master continued reciting, unhurried. After a moment, he spoke gently, as though addressing a minor interruption. "Please do not disturb my practice," he said. "If you need money, it is in the drawer over there." He gestured calmly, then returned to his chanting. The thief stood frozen. Never had he encountered such a response. No anger, no fear, only quiet cooperation. Slowly, uncertainly, he moved to the drawer and gathered what he found, while behind him the steady rhythm of sacred words continued. As the man prepared to leave, the master looked up. "Please," he said softly, "do not take everything. I must pay my taxes tomorrow. Leave a little for me." Astonished, the thief returned some of the money. He turned again to go. "One more thing," the master added gently. "You have taken my money, but you did not thank me. That is not very polite." The sword trembled in the man's hand. Confused beyond fear, he whispered a thank you and fled into the night. Later, when the thief was captured and confessed, the master was called to speak. The court expected anger, accusation, demand for punishment. Instead, he said calmly, "This man did not steal from me. I gave him the money freely, and he thanked me." Something within the thief broke open. For the first time in years, tears came, not from shame or rage, but from recognition. He had encountered something unfamiliar, love without conditions. And in that quiet recognition, the long night of his suffering began, at last, to soften. After his release, the man who once lived by stealing returned to the master with humility in his eyes and a quiet urgency in his heart. He bowed deeply and asked to remain, to learn, to walk a different path. Under the master's steady guidance, he practiced day after day, learning to meet the world with the same courage and kindness that had once disarmed him. Through patience, discipline, and the unwavering faith placed in him, his restless mind softened. In time, he came to know a peace that no prison walls could ever contain. The Buddha taught that hostility is never ended by hostility, but only by love. This truth echoes through the story like a bell in the night. When force is met with force, suffering multiplies. When fear is answered with fear, the wound deepens. Yet when aggression is met with clarity and compassion, something new becomes possible. Why do we so easily believe that anger must be confronted with anger, that threat requires resistance? Zen wisdom shows us that this instinct, though deeply rooted, often sustains the very conflict it hopes to end. Responding from love does not mean surrendering wisdom. It means acting from a place that is free, awake, and unshaken. Look gently into your own life. When someone approaches you with sharp words or heavy demands, what happens inside? The body tightens. The mind prepares its defenses. But does this reaction bring relief, or does it add weight to the moment? Does it close the door or open it wider? The master's response that night was not ignorance of danger, but insight into its source. He saw not an enemy, but a human being driven by fear and lack. By refusing to define him as dangerous, he allowed the man to see himself anew. Zen practice nurtures what might be called the strength of openness. Not recklessness, not submission, but the confidence to remain grounded even when circumstances are unstable. The courage to respond from wisdom instead of reflex. The Buddha reminded us that, in the end, three things truly matter: how fully we live, how deeply we love, and how gracefully we let go. The Master embodied all three. He lived fully in the moment, loved without conditions, and released attachment to possessions, safety, and even reputation. As you rest now, think of those who test your patience. The difficult voice, the harsh presence, the unexpected challenge. What would it mean to meet them without mirroring their unrest? To remain rooted in calm while the surface stirs? Tonight, if tension arises, remember the master who welcomed a threat as a guest. Feel the small space between what happens and how you respond. Within that space lives freedom. Within that pause lives choice. One word of peace, the Buddha said, is worth more than countless empty phrases. Sometimes the most powerful response is to remain steady in compassion, trusting that love carries a force no violence can match. And so the path continues, turning now toward a teaching about intensity and awakening. This is known as the lesson of the river. Near a clear mountain stream, where water glided endlessly over smooth stone, a hermit lived in quiet devotion. The flow of the river mirrored the flow of his own awareness, steady, changing, alive. Seasons passed, and the rhythm of nature became his teacher. One morning, a young traveler arrived, his clothes worn by long roads, his heart full of longing. He bowed respectfully and spoke, "Teacher, I wish to follow you." The hermit looked at him, eyes calm and penetrating. "Why?" he asked simply. The young man reflected, then answered, "Because I wish to find the divine." Without warning, the hermit stood, seized the young man, and led him swiftly to the river. Before questions could form, cold water closed over the seeker's head. The world vanished into urgency. Breath became everything. Thought dissolved. There was only the burning need for air. Moments stretched beyond measure until, at last, the hermit pulled him back into the light. The young man gasped, coughing, shaking, clinging to each breath as if it were life itself. The river flowed on, unchanged, singing softly beside them as the lesson waited to unfold. When his breath finally settled into a steady rhythm, the hermit spoke once more. His voice remained soft, yet it carried a quiet force that could not be ignored. He looked closely at the young man and asked, "While you were beneath the water, what did you desire more than anything else?" The answer rose instantly, stripped of thought or hesitation. "Air," the seeker said. The hermit inclined his head, knowing the teaching had reached its depth. "Then return to your life," he replied calmly, "and come back when your longing for truth is as strong as that longing for breath." With that, he turned away and resumed his meditation, leaving the young man soaked, trembling, and forever changed by the simplicity of the lesson. The Buddha taught that countless lamps can be lit from a single flame without diminishing its light. Yet the flame must be real. It must be alive. The hermit's act revealed the difference between curiosity and commitment, between interest and necessity. Awakening does not respond to mild preference. It answers only urgency. The seeker believed he wanted the sacred, yet his desire remained comfortable. He wanted insight as an addition to life, not as life itself. And so it is for many of us. We approach inner work cautiously, keeping one foot in familiarity. True transformation feels dangerous to the ego, because it asks us to release the version of ourselves we have learned to protect. Another misunderstanding quietly shapes our hesitation. We imagine awakening as a gentle expansion, something pleasant and affirming. Yet the ancient teachings speak of something deeper, a falling away of illusion, a dismantling of what no longer serves. And still, we often separate spirituality from the rest of our lives, placing it alongside work, relationships, and ambition, rather than allowing it to reshape everything. In modern seeking, this appears as endless collecting. Techniques gathered, retreats attended, teachings sampled. Experiences pile up, yet nothing fully penetrates. We want the comfort of growth without the cost of devotion. The river lesson speaks directly to this. It mirrors what mystics have long called the dark night, the moment when identity dissolves and only what truly matters remains. In that moment underwater, the seeker discovered what desire truly feels like. No concepts, no philosophy, only the raw will to live. This is the quality of longing that awakening requires. A Zen teacher once wrote that practice is not about becoming someone new, but about letting go of who you believe yourself to be. The hermit offered the seeker a glimpse of that surrender, not to frighten him, but to awaken sincerity. Intensity does not mean heaviness. It means presence. It is the same devotion seen in artists, scientists, and masters of any path, those who give themselves fully. The river symbolizes the surface of awareness where we drift comfortably. Being pulled beneath represents entering the deeper patterns that quietly shape our lives. This depth requires honesty and courage. It asks for the same urgency the body feels when air is absent. As you rest now, consider your own longing. Is it gentle curiosity or quiet necessity? What would it mean to seek truth as naturally as you breathe? The Buddha reminded us that the way is not distant. It lives in the heart. Awakening comes not from accumulating more experiences, but from offering the whole of yourself to what is already here. And so the path continues into another teaching, one that shows how returning to the present can dissolve even the strongest fear. This is the story of the captured warrior. Long ago, in an age of constant battle, a seasoned warrior found himself defeated. Surrounded by fallen companions, he was taken prisoner by enemy soldiers. His armor removed, his weapons gone, he was thrown into a narrow stone cell. The door closed with a heavy sound that echoed through his body. As night descended, his mind filled with images of what awaited him. Interrogation. Silence met with cruelty. And finally, his breath shortened. His heart raced. Sweat gathered on his skin despite the cool air. Sleep would not come. Hours passed as he paced, sat, and lay upon the straw-covered floor. The future played endlessly in his thoughts, each vision darker than the last. Then, from within the fear, a memory surfaced. The voice of his Zen teacher, calm and unwavering. "Tomorrow is not real," the voice said. "Only now exists." At first, the words seemed impossible. How could tomorrow be unreal when its threats felt so certain? But as the warrior allowed the teaching to sink deeper, something shifted. He noticed his breath. In this moment, it moved freely. He felt the ground beneath him. He heard the wind beyond the walls, moving through trees that knew nothing of war. In this moment, there was no torture, no execution, only a man sitting, breathing, aware. The future he feared existed only as thought. And as that realization settled, the fear loosened its grip. His breath deepened. His heart softened. A quiet smile appeared. The master's teaching had opened the door to freedom, releasing him from a prison far tighter than stone. The prison of tomorrow. Within a short while, the warrior drifted into a quiet, restorative sleep, his body resting as deeply as his mind had finally settled. Long ago, the Buddha taught, to understand where you have come from, observe how you live now. To understand where you are going, observe what you are doing in this moment. These words reflect the silent realization that unfolded in the warrior's prison cell. Life is never lived in yesterday or tomorrow. It is lived only here, only now. Why, then, do we burden ourselves with countless imagined futures? Zen teachings explain that the human mind evolves to protect the body, constantly anticipating danger and preparing defenses. In moments of real threat, this vigilance is useful. But when imagination replaces reality, the same mechanism becomes a source of deep suffering. Look gently into your own experience. How much of your unease comes from stories about what might happen? A meeting yet to arrive. News you are waiting for. A conversation you replay before it ever occurs. These events live mostly in thought, not in the present moment. The warrior's insight reminds us that future challenges can be acknowledged without being allowed to dominate the mind. Planning has its place. Preparation has value. But when foresight hardens into obsession, it steals our peace. The Vietnamese Zen teacher Thich Nhat Hanh often reminded his students that impermanence makes all things possible. Nothing is fixed. Nothing is guaranteed to continue as it is. The anxious mind assumes difficulty will persist or intensify, but impermanence gently dissolves that belief. In the prison cell, the warrior did not know what the next sunrise would bring. Rescue might come. Mercy might arise. Negotiation might succeed. Or something entirely unexpected could unfold. As the Buddha said, the past has already slipped away. The future has not yet arrived. There is only one moment to truly live. This teaching does not ask us to abandon responsibility or foresight. It invites us to notice where our attention habitually rests and to guide it back to what is alive now. Zen practice speaks of beginner's mind, meeting each moment fresh, unburdened by fear shaped by memory or expectation. When we inhabit the present fully, we often find calm and clarity already waiting for us, unnoticed beneath restless thought. The warrior's surroundings did not change. The cell remained cold. The future remained uncertain. Yet suffering transformed into peace simply by returning attention to what was real. This possibility is available to us whenever fear arises. Tonight, if your thoughts begin to wander into tomorrow's worries, remember the captive warrior and his teacher's quiet truth. Ask yourself softly, what is happening right now? Notice the rhythm of your breath, the weight of your body, the air resting on your skin. These simple anchors return you to reality, away from imagined futures. As the Buddha taught, do not cling to the past. Do not chase the future. Rest the mind in this moment. Within this understanding lies the key that opened the warrior's prison, and can open our own. As our journey continues, we turn now toward a story of acceptance and gentle contentment, the wisdom of the shepherd. Along a winding mountain path, where wildflowers brushed the earth and dust clung to weary feet, a traveler came upon a shepherd watching over his flock. The morning sun rose steadily, while clouds gathered slowly above, offering no clear promise of rain or heat. The shepherd sat calmly upon a worn stone, observing his sheep as they grazed without concern. His face reflected a serenity shaped by many seasons beneath open sky, lessons learned not from books, but from weather, silence, and time. Something in his presence stirred the traveler's curiosity. Wiping sweat from his brow, the traveler called out, "Friend, what sort of weather do you think we will have today?" The shepherd lifted his gaze, eyes clear as mountain water, and smiled. "The kind of weather I enjoy," he answered simply. The traveler hesitated, puzzled. He had expected a forecast, something useful for planning his journey. Instead, he received a reply that seemed circular, even unhelpful. "How can you be sure?" he asked, a trace of frustration in his voice. The shepherd gestured toward the sky, where sunlight and shadow moved together. "I learned long ago that I cannot always have what I want," he said gently. "So I learned to want what arrives." The traveler fell silent as the simplicity of this wisdom settled within him. Here stood someone free from the anxiety of uncertainty, a freedom no prediction could offer. The Buddha taught that attachment is the root of suffering. This story reveals that contentment does not come from shaping the world to our desires, but from reshaping our relationship to whatever appears. How much energy do we spend resisting what cannot be controlled? Whether that disrupts plans, people who do not meet expectations, moments that refuse to unfold as imagined. Each resistance creates tension, a quiet struggle against reality. The shepherd embodies what Zen calls deep acceptance, not resignation, but understanding that opposition to reality creates suffering, while alignment with it brings peace. Acceptance does not mean abandoning hope or effort. We may prefer sunshine, yet welcome rain. We may work toward goals, while remaining at ease when outcomes differ. The art lies in holding preferences lightly. A Zen saying reminds us, "The great way is not difficult for those without rigid preferences." This does not require abandoning desire, but releasing the demand that reality must obey it for us to be at peace. As you rest now, notice where resistance arises in your own life. Gently release the argument with what is. The Buddha taught that caring deeply does not require clinging. Peace emerges not when life changes, but when the heart softens into acceptance. It is the habit of tying our inner calm to outer conditions, believing peace will arrive only when life arranges itself according to our preferences. The shepherd tends his animals with care and appreciates ease when it appears, yet his sense of well-being does not rest on any specific outcome. This evening, as you quietly review the events of your day, the moments of ease and the moments of tension, can you sense the shepherd's quiet wisdom within yourself? What if contentment is not postponed until circumstances improve, but is already present, waiting to be recognized through a gentle shift in understanding? The Buddha taught that happiness does not arise from possessions, status, or identity. It arises from the way the mind relates to experience. The shepherd learned that when we release our insistence that life must match our expectations, a natural freedom appears, the freedom to meet each moment as it is, without resistance. From this place, joy becomes simple and available. Now, let us turn to a story about belief and how the mind quietly shapes the direction of our lives. This is the tale of a general and a small coin that revealed a deeper truth. In ancient Japan, a military commander found himself facing overwhelming odds. His army stood vastly outnumbered, the landscape favored the enemy, and by every rule of strategy, defeat seemed unavoidable. Yet within him remained a steady conviction that victory was possible. Perhaps it was intuition or faith born from desperation, but he trusted the righteousness of his cause and sensed that his soldiers carried a strength beyond numbers alone. Still, the fear among his troops was undeniable. They could see the enemy ranks stretching far into the distance. Murmurs of doubt spread through the camp like a cold wind. Faces grew tense. Confidence began to erode. The general understood that an army that expects defeat has already lost, regardless of weapons or skill. But an army that truly believes in its purpose can achieve what logic alone would deny. As dawn approached and the troops marched toward the battlefield, the general led them to a small shrine beside the road, a place where warriors for generations had paused to pray before uncertain fate. The soldiers gathered as one. Together, they bowed and offered sincere prayers for protection and guidance. When the prayers ended, the general reached into his robe and produced a single coin. Holding it high, he spoke clearly so all could hear. "We have asked the heavens for guidance," he said. "Now we will allow fate to speak. If this coin lands heads, we are meant to win. If it lands otherwise, then defeat awaits us. Let us accept the truth that is revealed." Silence fell. The soldiers leaned forward, breath held. The coin rose into the air, spinning briefly against the pale morning sky, then fell and struck the earth. It lay still. Heads. A roar of relief and joy surged through the ranks. Fear dissolved into laughter. Doubt gave way to certainty. The soldiers embraced one another, filled with renewed strength. Heaven had answered. Victory was assured. Carried by this conviction, they charged into battle with fierce unity and unwavering resolve. Against all expectations, they prevailed. The larger force was driven back, and the impossible victory became legend. Later, as celebration filled the camp, the general's lieutenant approached him, eyes wide with awe. "The coin revealed our destiny," he said. "No one can change what fate decides." The general smiled gently and withdrew the coin from his pocket, offering it for inspection. The lieutenant gasped. Both sides bore the same mark. The Buddha taught, "What we are is shaped by what we have thought." The mind creates the world we experience. This story reveals that destiny is not merely something that happens to us. It is something we continuously shape through belief, intention, and engagement. Why do we so often assume that outcomes are fixed, beyond our influence, when our own mindset plays such a powerful role in what unfolds? Zen teaches that while we cannot control every external condition, we have deep influence over the inner qualities we bring to each moment. The general understood this truth. He did not rely on deception alone. He created the conditions for courage to arise. His soldiers already possessed strength and skill. Belief simply allowed those qualities to surface. They still had to fight. They still had to act. But confidence aligned their efforts and unlocked their full capacity. Consider your own life. How often do you quietly assume failure before fully engaging? How often do fear and doubt limit the energy you bring to your challenges? And where might you create your own two-sided coin? A practice, a perspective, a steady inner stance that supports wholehearted effort regardless of circumstances? Zen practice teaches balance, intention without clinging, effort without tension. We learn that while outcomes remain uncertain, the way we meet each moment profoundly shapes our experience. As one Zen master observed, the unwise are ruled by their thoughts, while the wise learn to see through them. Tonight, as your body grows heavy and your breath slows, allow this story to settle gently into your awareness. You do not need to force belief or deny reality. Simply rest in the understanding that how you engage with life matters, deeply, quietly, moment by moment. The Buddha taught that the world we experience is shaped by the movements of our own mind. What we repeatedly hold in thought gradually becomes the lens through which reality appears. This is not superstition or wishful imagination, but a quiet acknowledgement of the creative nature of awareness itself. When we meet life with steadiness, sincerity, and wholehearted presence, hidden strengths often rise naturally to the surface. This evening, as you gently reflect on the challenges before you and the outcomes you quietly hope for, can you sense the wisdom of the general within yourself? Can you nurture inner conditions that support courage and clarity, rather than feeding doubt and fear? While destiny cannot be controlled, the attitudes through which it unfolds remain deeply within your care. The Buddha also reminded us that one flame can light 1,000 others without ever diminishing its own glow. In the same way, confidence and kindness multiply when they are shared. The general's faith awakens something already alive within his soldiers. Often, the most powerful act is not forcing change, but creating the space where latent strength can finally reveal itself. Now, let us move into a teaching that points beyond gaining and losing altogether, toward a freedom that was never born and therefore can never fade. This is a story about release from birth and death. In a quiet monastery garden, where spring blossoms drifted softly through the air, a devoted student named Gashu approached his teacher, the Zen master Yu. For many years, Gashu had practiced faithfully. He meditated daily, studied ancient teachings, followed every instruction with discipline and sincerity. Yet despite his efforts, awakening felt no closer than when he had begun. His seeking had become heavy, urgent, and exhausting. Bowing deeply, Gashu spoke with honest frustration. "Master, I have practiced for many years. I have followed every teaching, yet clarity escapes me. I feel as lost now as when I first began. Please tell me what I lack. What must I still do?" Ua looked upon him with quiet compassion, recognizing the subtle weight of spiritual ambition pressing upon his student. He saw that Gashu's striving itself had become the veil. Calmly, the master replied, "There is no hidden method. Zen is simply freedom from birth and death." Gashu frowned, unsettled by the response. "Freedom from birth and death?" he asked. "That sounds impossible. If I cannot still my thoughts, how can I transcend something so vast?" At this, the master's presence sharpened. His voice rose with sudden clarity. "Every thought you experience is birth and death." In that moment, something within Gashu loosened. He saw that what he had been seeking as a distant goal was already unfolding continuously. Thoughts arising, thoughts dissolving. Feelings appearing, fading. Sensations coming and going without effort. This ceaseless movement was not a barrier, It was the teaching itself. A wave of relief passed through him. The burden he had carried for so long fell away. He realized he had never needed to become anything else. He had always been the open awareness in which all experience quietly appeared and disappeared. The Buddha expressed this truth when he said that form is emptiness, and emptiness is form. Suffering arises not from lacking something, but from overlooking what is already present. We mistake ourselves for the stream instead of the space through which the stream flows. Every thought is born. Every thought dissolves. Every emotion rises and fades. This rhythm of birth and death unfolds endlessly in awareness. When we cling to the flow, anxiety arises. When we rest as the awareness itself, peace reveals itself naturally. A Zen master once said that the ordinary mind is the true way. Awakening is not hidden in rare states, but present in the simple knowing of each moment. The awareness that recognizes restlessness is the same awareness that recognizes stillness. Our searching often creates divisions, spiritual and ordinary, progress and failure, where none truly exist. Each attempt to perfect experience reinforces the belief that peace lies elsewhere. Yet in Zen, there is a practice known as just sitting, not to reach enlightenment, but to recognize that sitting itself is already complete. Tonight, as thoughts gently rise and fall, can you notice the birth and death you pointed to? Can you sense that you are not the passing thought, but the steady presence in which it appears? The Buddha taught that all conditioned things change. Freedom lies not in perfecting them, but in recognizing what does not change. As we continue, we turn now to a teaching that reveals the subtle gap between knowing and being. This is the story of the one-eyed monk and the silent debate. Long ago in China, traveling monks journeyed from temple to temple, testing their understanding and refining their insight. Before receiving shelter for the night, a visitor was often required to engage in a silent exchange known as Dharma combat. Not a battle of words, but a meeting of realization. One evening, as shadows stretched across a monastery nestled among bamboo groves, a weary monk arrived. His robes were worn, his sandals thin, yet his gaze was sharp with sincere inquiry. The abbot, occupied with evening duties, asked his attendant to receive the traveler and begin the silent encounter. This attendant had served the monastery with quiet devotion for many years. Though his body carried a visible imperfection, the loss of one eye in his youth, his inner perception had grown unusually sharp. Some said the absence of physical sight had refined his inward seeing, guiding him toward a deep, lived understanding of the Buddha's way. When the two monks met in the formal hall, the traveling monk suggested an uncommon exchange. "Let us speak without words," he proposed, shaping the air with his hands. "Some truths are clearer when language is set aside." The attendant agreed, and their silent dialogue began. The traveler lifted one finger toward the open space above them, holding it calmly. Without pause, the attendant raised two fingers in response. Encouraged, the traveler then lifted three fingers, his expression composed and confident. At this, the attendant suddenly clenched his hand into a firm fist and held it steady between them. The traveler froze. His confidence wavered, uncertainty flickering across his face. Without offering another sign, he bowed hastily and withdrew from the hall. Soon after, he sought out the abbot, speaking with humility and restraint. "Venerable teacher," he said, "your attendant's understanding surpasses my own. I am not ready to remain here and must continue my journey. The abbot listened attentively. "Tell me what you encountered," he asked. The traveler explained, "I raised one finger to represent the Buddha. Your monk replied with two, showing Buddha and Dharma. I then raised three, symbolizing the three jewels. When he responded with a fist, I understood that all distinctions dissolve into one reality. Such insight humbles me." The abbot nodded thoughtfully, surprised by this interpretation, knowing well the temperament of his attendant. As evening settled, the attendant rushed in, breath heavy, his face flushed with agitation. "Where is that rude man?" he demanded. "I have searched everywhere." The abbot looked at him with gentle curiosity. "What happened between you?" The attendant spoke heatedly. "He insulted me first by holding up one finger, mocking my missing eye. I answered with two fingers to show I bore no offense. Then he raised three fingers, emphasizing our difference. That was enough. I made a fist, ready to strike, but he fled." The abbot stood silently, absorbing the scene. Two men had shared the same moment, the same gestures, yet lived entirely different realities. The Buddha taught that we do not see the world as it is, but as we are. This story reveals that truth with quiet clarity. Each monk interpreted events through the lens of his own conditioning, one shaped by spiritual ambition, the other by old wounds. Zen teachings speak of the 8 worldly winds: praise and blame, pleasure and pain, gain and loss, honor and disgrace. These unseen forces stir the mind, shaping perception like shifting weather. The attendant's sensitivity turned neutral signs into personal attacks. The traveler's hunger for wisdom transformed anger into enlightenment. Reflect gently on your own life. How often do past hurts or future hopes distort the present moment? How many misunderstandings arise not from what was done, but from what was assumed? Both monks were sincere. Neither intended harm, yet neither perceived clearly. Their minds filtered reality through expectation and fear. Zen practice invites us to soften these filters. One way is through not knowing mind, the willingness to pause before concluding, to allow multiple possibilities to coexist. Another is awareness of emotion, noticing when insecurity or desire begins to color perception. A Zen master once said that ordinary mind is the way. This means turning toward the mind that interprets, not merely the events interpreted. As you rest now, notice the stories your mind creates. Can you let them drift like clouds, without grasping or resisting? The Buddha taught that hatred is never healed by hatred. Only by understanding and compassion does clarity arise. And in this gentle seeing, the mind begins to soften, and sleep comes naturally. Hatred is never softened by more hatred. Only a mind free of ill will can truly bring conflict to rest. This is not a theory, but an ancient law of life itself. If the caretaker had met the traveler's sharp words with gentle curiosity instead of resistance, if the traveler had paused to examine his own expectations of spiritual conduct, their brief meeting might have unfolded as a quiet lesson for them both. As this day slowly fades into night, and your body begins to rest, you may gently revisit the conversations you had, the moments that linger in your thoughts. Can you sense how your own worries, hopes, and hidden sensitivities colored the way you understood those moments? Can you feel the subtle distance between what truly occurred and the story your mind wove around it? The Buddha reminds us that peace is not something to be found elsewhere. It arises softly from within, like moonlight appearing when clouds drift apart. When we see how our inner climate creates the storms we experience outside, a doorway opens. Through that doorway comes clarity, and with clarity, compassion naturally follows. Now, let us rest together in a simple story, one that speaks quietly of choice, responsibility, and the unseen power present in every single breath. This is the story of a young seeker and a small bird. There once was a bright and capable student who had grown restless with his teacher's calm and measured replies. No matter the question, the teacher responded with ease, as though wisdom flowed without effort. The student began to believe that this serenity was merely performance, a veil of clever words meant to impress. Quietly, he resolved to uncover what he thought was illusion. After several days of careful thought, he imagined a test that seemed flawless. Early one morning, while dew still clung to the garden leaves, he caught a small sparrow. The fragile creature trembled gently in his hands, its heartbeat quick and light, a delicate rhythm against his palms. He hid the bird behind his back and walked toward his teacher, who was seated peacefully in the morning sun, reading from worn and ancient pages. "Teacher," the student called, his voice carrying restrained excitement, "I have a question that will reveal true wisdom." The teacher lifted his gaze slowly. His eyes were kind, unhurried, and clear. He had seen this spark of challenge many times before and recognized it as part of the student's unfolding path. "Please," the teacher said softly, "ask what you wish." Stepping closer, the student kept his hands hidden. "Teacher," he said, "I am holding a bird. Tell me, through your wisdom, is the bird alive or dead?" Inside, the student felt triumphant. He believed there was no escape from his design. If the teacher said the bird was alive, the student would crush it and reveal a lifeless form. If the teacher said it was dead, the student would release the bird into the air. Either answer, he thought, would expose the truth. He waited, eager for victory. The teacher remained silent for a long moment. He did not try to look behind the student's back. He did not ask questions. His gaze seemed to move beyond the surface, as though seeing not the bird, but the heart of the one who held it. At last, with a gentle smile, the teacher spoke. "My friend," he said quietly, "the answer rests in your hands." The student stood still, his breath caught in his chest. With those few words, his entire plan dissolved. The teacher had not chosen between life or death. Instead, he revealed something deeper. The power had never belonged to the teacher. It had always belonged to the one holding the bird. The student felt the soft movement of life between his palms. In that moment, understanding arose without effort. The fate of the bird had always been his responsibility. And beyond that, he saw that this truth reached far into every corner of life. Each moment carries a choice: to protect or to harm, to awaken or to remain asleep, to act from fear or from care. Slowly, the student brought his hands forward and opened them. The bird paused, as if sensing the stillness, then lifted its wings and disappeared into the open sky. The Buddha teaches that all we are is shaped by our thoughts. From the mind, the world unfolds. This understanding reminds us that we are never separate from our choices. We are constantly shaping our own experience, whether we are aware of it or not. So often we search outward for answers, believing someone else must know what is best. Yet Zen gently points us back inward. True wisdom cannot be handed down like an object. It must be realized through direct presence with life itself. The student believed he was testing the teacher, but in truth, he was being shown his own power. Every moment places something precious in our care. Our words, our actions, the hearts of others, our own integrity. As you rest now, breathing slowly, allow this understanding to settle softly within you. Every moment that comes into our care holds the seed of becoming. From the same conditions, something nourishing may grow, or something harmful may arise. What unfolds is shaped not by fate, nor by the insight of others, but by how we meet the power already resting within us. The teacher's response revealed a quiet truth about genuine guidance. Those who truly teach do not hand us conclusions. They gently return us to ourselves. They help us notice the decisions already unfolding in our hearts and the strength we already hold, rather than inviting us to lean upon borrowed authority. A Zen teacher once observed that choice is always present, even when we believe there is none. The bird resting in the student's hands mirrors every moment when we tell ourselves we are trapped, powerless, or without responsibility. Yet awareness always carries choice, and choice always carries care. Now, as your breath slows, you may softly turn toward something you are facing in your own life. Where have you been waiting for direction from outside yourself? What might shift if you gently acknowledged that the ability to shape your response has been in your hands all along? This does not mean that we command the world's movements. It means we are always free in how we meet them. The Buddha taught that the mind shapes our becoming. Each thought, each intention, each small action is like the student's moment with the bird, an opening toward kindness or toward harm, toward clarity or confusion. The answer has never been elsewhere, it has always been here. As night deepens and the world grows quiet, you may notice the many places where you have felt uncertain or small. Can you feel, beneath that uncertainty, the quiet dignity of being one who chooses? Not as a burden, but as the simple honor of being alive and aware. No one can walk this path for us. No one can carry us to awakening. We move step by step, breath by breath, by our own seeing. The bird was freed not because of clever words, but because of a single conscious choice. And in remembering our own capacity to choose care over harm, truth over illusion, gentleness over fear, we discover that every meaningful answer has always rested in our open hands. Now, let us drift into another quiet story, one that speaks of trust and the courage to move with life rather than against it. This is the story of the clear river. Deep within a vast and shining river, where the water flowed pure and cool, there lived a community of small beings. Above them, the current moved steadily, carrying the memory of distant springs and faraway oceans. They lived along the riverbed, young and old alike, each holding tight Lido stones, roots, and fallen branches. For countless seasons, this clinging had been their way of surviving. From the moment of birth, they were taught to grasp, hold fast, the elders would warn. The current is dangerous, it will take you where you do not know. Safety lives in staying just as you are. But one small being began to feel weary of holding on. Day after day, he watched the water glide overhead, moving with quiet strength and ease. While others complained of aching limbs and endless effort, he wondered what it might be Likido trust, that flowing force. One morning he spoke aloud. I am tired of gripping what is familiar. Though I cannot see where the river leads, I trust that it knows its way. If I cling forever, I may never truly live. Fear rippled through the community. Do not let go, they cried. The river will throw you against the rocks. You will be broken and lost. But his heart was settled. with one last gentle glance, he released the stone he had always known. At once, the current swept him forward and he was spun and struck against the riverbed, pain rising where none had been before, yet he did not reach out for another anchor. Slowly, something changed, and as he surrendered fully, the water lifted him higher, the rocks fell away. The struggle softened. Soon, he was no longer being dragged, and he was moving with the river itself, carried by its rhythm, held by its strength. Far downstream, others watched in wonder. One like themselves flowing freely, seeming to glide through the water. "A miracle," they cried. "He has come to save us." Hearing them, the flowing one felt only compassion. "I am no different from you," he called gently. "The river would lift us all, if only we trusted it. Our task is not to cling, but to participate in this great movement." But they continued to praise him, even as their hands tightened around stones and roots. When he disappeared beyond the bend, they began telling stories of a savior who had passed through, never noticing that the same invitation still flowed above them. The Buddha taught that what we cling to is what we lose. Here lies a deep paradox. We grasp for safety, believing control will protect us, yet it is this very grasping that gives birth to suffering. From early life, we learn that the known feels safe and the unknown feels dangerous. When this belief hardens, it becomes a barrier to growth that we imagine that holding tightly will stop change, not seeing that change is the river itself. Life is movement, and when we resist it, we tire ourselves struggling against forces far greater than our will. As you rest now, you may gently notice where you are holding on. A role that no longer fits. A story about yourself that has grown heavy. The river will continue to flow. Our only choice is whether to fight it or to discover the quiet grace of letting go. Nothing remains the same, and like water, life does not battle the mountain. It simply moves patiently and finds its way. It follows its own quiet course, always choosing the path of least resistance. When we learn to align ourselves with the movement of life instead of struggling against it, we uncover a natural ease that force and rigidity can never produce. Now, in the softness of this moment, as your body settles and your breath becomes unhurried, you may gently ask yourself what you are ready to set down. Perhaps it is a concern about what lies ahead, a heaviness carried from something long past, or a version of yourself that no longer feels spacious enough to hold who you are becoming. Can you sense the quiet vitality of this present moment and allow it to guide you? Can you trust, just for now, that where it leads is exactly where you need to be? The Buddha spoke of release in simple words. Release what has already passed, release what has not yet arrived, release even what appears before you now. Soften. Be at ease in this very breath. In this gentle trust, we discover something surprising. The current we once feared is not here to undo us. It is the very movement that carries us back to our most natural state of being. As our time together slowly draws to a close, you may notice that the calm you are feeling was never given to you from outside. It has always lived quietly within you, waiting patiently to be remembered. The stillness you have touched tonight does not belong only to these words or to this moment of listening. It rests within your own awareness, steady and unchanged, available whenever you turn toward it. The Buddha reminded us that the mind shapes our becoming. In reflecting on this, you may sense that peace does not require perfect circumstances or extraordinary effort. It arises naturally from your own heart and mind, present in any moment you choose to return inward. Each story shared tonight has spoken the same truth through different images and voices. That our burdens grow lighter when we stop resisting so fiercely. That freedom appears when we learn to hold life gently. And that lasting ease unfolds when we see beyond habitual thoughts and automatic reactions. Even if tomorrow brings restlessness, even if the world feels heavy again, these understandings have already settled within you. They will be there, quietly steadying you, whenever you remember to pause. As you ease into sleep, notice how these teachings have not asked you to go anywhere else. They have simply guided you back to where you already are. In the stillness surrounding you, feel how naturally your breath deepens, how your body releases its effort, how the mind becomes peaceful when it is no longer being pushed to do anything. These ancient insights point to something beautifully simple. Clarity is not hidden in distant places or complicated practices. It lives in the gentle act of noticing, of being awake to what is unfolding right now. Tonight, you have touched that simplicity, a truth that reveals itself whenever we slow down and truly listen. As you drift from this quiet space into rest, carry with you not only the words you have heard, but the openness they have awakened. Let this awareness walk beside you, offering steadiness and warmth through whatever comes. Remember, this peace is not fragile. It is as natural as breathing, as dependable as your own presence. You have not learned something new tonight. You have remembered something true. Thank you for sharing this gentle journey with us. Rest deeply. Sleep well.